1 minute to start. Okay. 9 p.m. in the Philippines. So, Durai, you tell me when we start. We start now?
Please proceed, Luis.
Okay. So,
Thank you.
hello everyone, and welcome to our fourth season of the 2023 International Online Seminar, Bamboo, a Very Sustainable Construction Material. Today, we have a very exciting day where we are going to talk about social initiatives in Latin America. We have three incredible speakers today that are going to share with us their projects in different regions in Guatemala, in Ecuador, and Colombia. And we are going to learn a lot about these social initiatives. So the mechanics of the presentations today, each speaker will have 30 minutes. And after that, after the three speakers, we are going to have the Q&A session where we are going to have. I am your moderator. My name is Luis Felipe Lopez. I am the head of technology at Best Baha'i Foundation in the Philippines, a social enterprise that builds social housing in the Philippines. And with me is Durai Hajaraman, my support during this session today. At the end of our session, Edwin Seas Camilla, the chair of the INBAR Task Force for Construction, and Durai will make the final remarks. So I don't say not more because the stars are the speakers. So let's have our first speaker of the day is the engineer Fabián Moreno. From this moment, I will switch to Spanish and then I will do the presentation of the speakers in Spanish. So all of you will have the alternative to choose the language that you want to hear the translation. So there is English and there is Spanish, and in the application of Zoom you can choose the language you want. So, bienvenido, Fabián. Es un placer tenerte hoy con
Welcome,
nosotros.
Fabian. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. Fabian is going to share with us a very interesting topic. It's called social housing in Ecuador, and this is part of the sustainable construction policy. Fabian is a forestry engineer. He's Ecuadorian. He's an agroforestry engineer with a master's degree in forestry management of forests. He is the author of the Silviculture Manual for Ecuador in 2019, and also contributed with the development of the National Bamboo Strategy for Ecuador between 2018 and 2022. He was previously the zoning director of the Ministry of Agriculture of Ecuador, and since 2018, he has been involved with the INBAR Association, being the coordinator of the Arauclima project, which is related to social housing. So you have the floor. Please go ahead with your presentation. You can kick off. Hi, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Luis, for your introduction. You're so kind. It's a pleasure for me to share this space with Luis, with Antonio, with Dural, and with Rafael. Most likely, Rafael will not remember me. I met him when I was 21, and he was one of the people that inspired me to start working with bamboo. I met him in Puerto Lopez in Ecuador, so I have very fond memories of you. And because of the work done in Al-Andalus almost 30 years ago, we started creating a group of teachers who are now specialized in bamboo construction. And ever since, I think that bamboo construction in Ecuador has evolved. I would like to share my screen now. This is the presentation that I put together for this session. So please let me know if you can see it. Yes, we see it. We see it perfectly. It's working fine. All right. So I would like to tell you the story of bamboo and the development of construction and everything that is involved in the chains that support bamboo construction in Ecuador. Because of the work we've done with INBAR, way before 2018, we became a stronger force with the financing of the Spanish Cooperation Agency for Development, which is ESPI. That's its acronym. So let me give you a bit of context. You should be aware that in Ecuador, there aren't that many commercial bamboo plantations. Bamboo is in its majority is found in some natural spots. Some of them are homogeneous and some of them are mixed with some forestry species, and they're found on slopes and on riversides. So based on the national strategy for bamboo, it is estimated that Ecuador, just give me a second here, that Ecuador has about 600,000 hectares of bamboo, majorly wild angustifolia, and the activities of the project with a seat have been focused in the province of Manabí. Manabí is a province with the greatest concentration of bamboo in Ecuador. Almost 24% of all the amount of bamboo is located here. And in addition, the places where most bamboo is found are the places that have more unsatisfied basic needs, also known as the poorest populations, unfortunately. It is also important to mention that the average population in the rural zone of Manabí is over 40 years of age. And it's also important to mention that bamboo is part of their day-to-day life of the inhabitants of the province of Manabí. So if you ever travel around Ecuador, you will be able to see bamboo by rivers. That's why people frequently think that bamboo is only present near rivers. But of course, that's not true. This is one of the highest parts of the province of Manabí in our country. And you can see that on the top of the mountains, bamboo can be found. And as I mentioned before, majorly we have Wandu and Angustifolia, and there is a biotype that has a lot of which is very difficult to harvest because of the thorns. So it's a very difficult area to access. And people can save up to $320 a year because of self-consumption, because of bamboo. And here we can see some other pictures. They are also from Manabí. And they showcase that this is a widely deforested province. It's the second most deforested province of the country. There's almost 2 million hectares, out of which 100,000 are pastures. So all these dry areas are pastures. And those red spots are the bamboo spots. So those lines are wadua, and they protect water sources. So if we take a look at the picture of the higher part of Manabí, we can see that bamboo is located in the highest points, and this is related to the conservancy of water. So the majority of the bamboo found in Manabí is present because it is helping us keep water. Manabí is the only province that doesn't get water from I think the survival or water for human consumption in this province depends on the amount of rainfall and the capacity that our forests may have to conserve water. And that's why we see the presence of manabee, of bamboo. So whenever we take a look at the major uses of manabee, we have this kind of cane called caña rodilla, and also other kinds of bamboo used for fences and for temporary housing. So this has framed bamboo in Ecuador been considered as the material used vastly by people with limited resources. This can actually be true. The majority of bamboo in Ecuador is indeed used by people with low income, but this, of course, does not mean that this is a material for the poor. And this is an area where we placed a lot of effort in the last few years. And I think that ever since the arrival of others like 20 or 30 years ago in Ecuador, we've fought in order to change this perception about bamboo. Traditionally, it has been used for housing. These houses are over 100 years old. It has also been used in productive structures. It has been widely used in agriculture and also for the prevention of landslides. But what's the current status of bamboo plantations in Ecuador? People who have bamboo nearby are people with low income, and they consider bamboo as a means for their survival. When the weather conditions, the effects of climate change, and now when the El Niño phenomenon is common, have a negative impact in their other economic activities or in their main economic activities as cocoa, coffee, and banana. So the harvest decreased dramatically, and they see in bamboo an option to survive during this difficult time. So as there's no organized bamboo chain or no ongoing demand that will promote the constant use of bamboo or that would encourage producers to sustainably manage bamboo, they decide to work with informal traders who have no knowledge about the management of bamboo and who just cut off the bamboo while completely destroying the areas where producers plant and harvest bamboo. So this is a picture of the status of Guadua forest in the canton of Puerto Viejo. This inventory was done with INBAR staff that came from China in a 30 by 30 parcel. And we've realized that the area that is not used by bamboo is an area that could have a different use. So they have a very low density because there's very little maintenance given to them. So since 2018, we started with this program, which is called Impulso al Bambú. And this is a strategic resource for development, for local development, of course. And this has been done with the chain of sustainable development and sustainable production. And in order to develop and create this social impact that we were aiming for and trying to break this scheme that states that bamboo is only used by the poor, we had to create this project that was about the availability of raw materials, both in amount and quality, because the poor management of bamboo led to poor quality too. Also, training of qualified labor, training of qualified professionals, because we may have proper labor for building, but if there are no building professionals specialized in bamboo, whenever they start working on this project, when they bring these projects to the central government or to local government, and even with private enterprises, they don't do so because they didn't have any knowledge. And we needed to work with research and also selling and access to market. So a lot of work had to be done about this. we needed to work with political incidents and also with the relationship between stakeholders, and also work with national and local regulations, all in order to create the conditions for the sustainable chain of production of bamboo in Ecuador. So one of the main issues started with the issue of knowing where the raw material was going to come from. And in Ecuador, we didn't have enough technical personnel, both from state-owned companies and also from others. So we started developing a training course for trainers. So we started training specialists and public workers in order to show them the use of bamboo, in order to recover the use of bamboo in Manabí, which is around 140,000 hectares, which was made up of 18 virtual sessions. Each topic was addressed by a specialist, and this eventually led to two comprehensive sessions, comprehensive practical sessions, so that this trainer could approve the train-the-trainer scores. However, this was not the end of it. These new trainers, in order to graduate from this program, needed to implement a field school for the sustainable management of bamboo in their own territories. And of course, this had to be done with the producers themselves. So during all this time, we've been able to develop, just in the province of Manabí, this is also taking place in the Amazon region in the north of Ecuador, but just in Manabí, we've already created 20 field schools for the sustainable management of bamboo with the participation of 375 producers who own pieces of land with wadwa, all in very poor conditions. And in this school, that includes a 10-week training course, at their own parcels, can recover or start with the sustainable management of bamboo. And this has been quite interesting because the water forest, with over 2 years of management, the response to sustainable management of bamboo has been impressive. So there are examples of water forests with a given amount of sprouts at the beginning when the inventory was created, and 1 or 2 years after, they have 300 or 400% more emission of this that we had at the beginning of the sprouts. So one of the issues, however, with the encouragement of sustainable construction in Ecuador is the lack of supply of premium raw material for construction because of the background that I mentioned. So we do have a lot of bamboo, we do have a lot of water, but whenever we needed 50,000 stems for a specific work, it was very difficult to come by. So if you were a builder and needed 5,000 columns, people would tell you, listen, you need to pay this in anticipation and need to wait for 4 or 5 months. So of course, projects didn't go through. That's why field schools are so important. And that's why these producers who participate in this field school, they start becoming members of a national directory of producers that can supply this raw material. These are all smallholders. They all have nothing but half a hectare, 1 hectare, the one with the 3 hectares. But if you add up, you can already start supplying raw material for development of projects. So as not every canton has a nearby preservation center, through this project, we implemented these mobile preservation tanks that can be transported in trucks to the sectors where this is produced, and preservation takes place on site. So by doing so, you can also save in transportation because you're saving the money that you would spend transporting from the producers to the center. And you can also select AAA proper quality bamboo, and this is the one that is preserved, and this is kept for self-consumption. In addition, we needed to know what we had. So the national strategy provides a big framework for this, but they don't point out where bamboo is located. So how far from the preservation centers bamboo is located. And we started in 2019 with a pilot project about the use of application for bamboo of INBAR. And we started shedding some light on this. So for example, we start realizing that 30% of our records in 2019 was found in people who didn't have legal land. And this, of course, meant that there was an issue because how can you obtain a permit to supply with this? And then in 2022, we worked with the development of methodology for bamboo mapping through satellite images of free source. So we were able to start mapping this. Nevertheless, we didn't go into detail because these pictures were of 10 meters and the size of these places in Manabí are smaller. So usually there are some very small pieces of forest that on 10-meter images cannot be discerned. Now in 2023, we've reported a lot of workshops about geographic information by training public workers and also specialists in this area, in this subject, in order to be able to map this. And in 2024, we're going to start a mapping process with imaging of 4.7 meters that will be free source. So we worked with the supply, but there was another issue too, because we needed the preservation centers. So the treatment and preservation of bamboo was indeed an issue in Ecuador. So in 2016, after the earthquake, there was a before and an after because of this. So it was clear that bamboo was an earthquake-resistant material that didn't lead to the losses of human lives during the earthquake and the houses that were bamboo built. So this was very interesting, and this led to the interest in bamboo. However, we didn't have enough preservation centers, and the ones that were in place were inefficient and didn't have the capacity of preserving as much bamboo as required. So we started providing support to the preservation centers of the province for them to start being more efficient, for them to have a greater preservation capacity, and above all, to do so in a technical way as required by the National Construction Standard. So this screen, this picture, summarizes the events that have taken place in Ecuador. After the 2016 earthquake, the Ecuadorian Standard for Construction was created. This meant that Ecuador included bamboo as a construction material for the country. And as I said before, the earthquake determined a before and an after in Ecuador. In 2018, the National Bamboo Strategy was published that for its development included private stakeholders and state stakeholders in order to put together a document that will set the place to go with bamboo chains in Ecuador. And in 2018, the first ordinance at a national level was created that promoted bamboo construction and sustainable management of this element. This was through tax exemptions given to the property tax on a yearly basis. So based on the amount of bamboo in your construction, your property tax will be reduced up to 50% on the total amount of the payment. Likewise, the property tax on lands based on the percentage of bamboo found on a given farm, of course, recorded and managed, then the property tax would reduce. So the law for production development created some advantages as well in matters of process qualification, and projects that use sustainable materials in their proposals were going to have a higher paid by the state for financing. So the quintessential product is bamboo in Ecuador. So in 2021, we created the National Housing Project that included sustainable materials, which included bamboo, for social housing. In 2023, just in October, the urban policy was approved that aims to foster the sustainable development of human settlements through a resilient model with low environmental impact. So this was crucial. This was crucial because it already provided the foundations for the development and to continue with the development of bamboo for housing plans. So through this political instance and through this regulations in Ecuador, with a program called Creamos Vivienda or Creating Housing, bamboo was added to 100% subsidized housing for the structure of the lining of houses. This included blocks and also single-family households. And during this year, the first 1,080 houses were built in the coast and Amazon regions of the country that already use bamboo in their cover lining. And this is a very important step because each lining included 35 6-meter bamboo columns, that these 35 columns in these 1,080 houses made the chain more dynamic and led to a very important boost with all the projects that we were talking about. So the greatest incentive for our producer to sustainably manage bamboo and continue using it for them to be able to sell it. And the chain that requires more bamboo, the area that requires more bamboo is construction. And in 2021, actually 2022, together with the Ministry of Housing, we developed the SDG housing protocol. And this is the design that you can see on screen. And this is fully built with bamboo. So 250 preserved columns are required for this. And this is important because the social impact comes straight away. So a producer who supplies bamboo for one of their houses will receive directly $500 for their unpreserved bamboo. And this bamboo is taken to preservation centers. In this case, they are made out of families and associations in this province, and they also have a direct cost. So in order to do this, we needed to train a specialized labor. So this is where we came up with the need of creating the School for Sustainable Construction with Bamboo, which took place with the support of the central government of Ecuador, as well as local governments and private enterprises, but also the academia, other associations, and of course the president of INBAR. And the mission is promoting ongoing training through an innovative, technical, inclusive, and comprehensive process of training, non-formal training, by being able to certify local labor for sustainable bamboo construction as a strategy for labor insertion and for the creation of income for the youth in conditions of poverty because they haven't been able to access education. Remember that I said that the rural zones of the province had an average age of 40 years of age? That's because there's no jobs in this area. So this school is a specific way of working, and it's located on a given canton once per year, and it's placed in a strategic places so that these people in Manabi of families that own bamboo would be able to access this training that lasts for a year and that is certified by the Ministry of Labor that would lead to jobs. And this has created an impressive impact because the producer, who is the son of another producer, is not only looking after their small piece of bamboo, but they're already looking after theirs and their family because they're going to provide them with the raw material for the construction. This methodology is 30% theoretical and 40% practical. Very little is taught at a classroom, and during workshops, they learn how to familiarize with tools and perfect their techniques. There are field visits for them to build their own criterion, and this is very important because once they learn this technique, once they learn the theory, once they learn how to interpret the construction standards, they work in real places, and we call them the sustainable footprints of bamboo. And so far, during the first processes, 102 teachers have been graduated, and we are about to finish the second cycle of the school. The first one was in the Puerto Viejo sector, the second one in the El Carmen sector, that is about to conclude, and we expect the graduation of 5 new teachers. The first one was in the center of the province, the second one is in the north of this province, and we're going to start with the third cycle in February, and this is going to be to the southeast of the province. This is important. It's important to highlight 24% of participants in the workshop school are women, and they are very, very active. They are treated in the same conditions as men, of course. And this is a very high number, even though it doesn't seem so, because construction activities have always been used in Latin America by men. You have 5 minutes, Fabian. All right. So how can we link all these processes that include raw materials, construction, regulation, ordinances, and how we promote them, how we raise awareness through this sustainable footprints of bamboo? These are structures built in association with local governments, and this is the place where these practices take place, where students are able to carry out real practice. So this workshop provides a design which is made by students through models and labor, and local government associations, the prefecture, and even the state itself provide materials. And this is how, wherever we found a school, we promote the work of our students. And because of this, because of the first cycle, the students were able to create an association, to create a group, and create their own small business for the state. And as I mentioned, 1,080 houses were built in the first set of social health built by this initiative. This brings pride to the construction sector, and the processes carried out by INBAR and ESI, as well as the students who have graduated from the processes, built 480 housing kits. Almost 50% of all houses built during this first set were built by the former students of the workshop school. So we built Chirijo houses, we built the Olmedo house, we built a church in Coquimillas. There's one that I forgot, which is the Coliseum of Puerto Lopez. I'm not a student, but my name is here, but they are certified by the Ministry of Labor. And this is how we can ensure qualified labor and continue moving the chains of the bamboo in Ecuador. So the conclusion is that the activities that seek social impact should be clearly associated to local needs. Saying this from an office in a different city, in a different province, has proven with time there's no fruit. So it's important to carry out actions with the commitment of local and national associations. This is a political decision, and for this we need a continuous lobbying at local government and the central government too. This leads to a multiplying effect in public workers in their own careers, because as there's instability or as the leaders of the government change, we lose the continuity of the actions. When you have public workers that have a career, there's continuity in actions where there are changes of government. Other activities for promoting fair trade as a mechanism that will lead to income for producers. They are the ones who have resources, and they are the ones who provide bamboo to this chain. Field schools are a methodology that can be replicated for this state constructions as the Ministry of Agriculture. The experiences in training of specialized labor in bamboo constructions can be part of a technical training of private institutions, universities, and even state-owned institutions. And finally, awareness raising and constant communication are key in order to continue with the support and interest of the private stakeholders and public stakeholders. Thank you very, very much. And I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you. Thank you for this space. Thank you so much. Fantastic presentation. Hat off because of the work carried out in Ecuador. When I lived in Latin America, in Colombia, I had the chance to visit Ecuador a couple of times, and I was able to witness the process that was taking place. And it's amazing to see how political will has made it possible for Ecuador to be a country today, a pioneering country in housing. And I wanted to ask you a question before we actually continue with the next speaker. How has the perception of bamboo changed in normal people? Because I think that common people are the key point, and this would lead to a greater acceptance of this material. How has this happened? Well, it's been tough. It has been certainly tough. But I think that the strategy of the sustainable bamboo footprint done with the workshop has been crucial. Having construction icons is key. We often struggle to make bamboo part of social housing, but those of us who live in the world of bamboo construction, we know that social housing does not evidence or showcase all the properties and beauty of bamboo. And that's why, with these footprints, we try to do a lot of lobbying in order to be able to convince people that local authorities should co-finance these footprints and thus create appealing footprints. Each footprint includes a sign with the contact information and the names of people who made this, and also a strong message. These are constructions made with a zero carbon footprint, and this is how we dig deep. This information, this sign that includes the content information, has led to very positive effects. So people call and they say, listen, I would like to build something out of bamboo next to my pool, next to my hammock, and this is how we've been able to gain more space. The church that I showed you is in a road that leads to a very important place in Ecuador, and people stop and take a look at this. And this is becoming a tourist space. It's closed on the outside, but people stop out of this church to take a picture of it. So these are iconic constructions that are helping us change our mind, understanding that housing is not only social if made with bamboo. Thank you so much, Fabian. And if you have any questions about Fabian's presentation, please write them on the chat box. And at the end of the 3 sessions, we're going to be able to have a Q&A session where our speakers are going to be able to address them. Now, I would like to give the floor to Antonio Aguilar. Antonio Aguilar is an entrepreneur from Guatemala. He is the president of the CASA company, and his company leads sustainable construction in Guatemala. CASA has built over 110 bamboo projects in Guatemala in different places and different microclimates in this country. His project has been mentioned in different media outlets as CNN, the World Bank Organization, and also on TED Talks. Antonio studied in Harvard, and he has a master's in physics. So let us welcome Antonio Aguilar, who's going to talk about the development of social housing in Guatemala. Antonio, you have the floor. Thank you so much, Luis Felipe, and thank you to all the organizers for this event. It's a real honor being here. I would like to congratulate Fabian for the fantastic work carried out in Ecuador. It's truly impressive. The presentation is going to be in English, so the translator is going to have to switch languages.
Can you see my screen?
Perfecto.
Great. So the title of my talk is Bamboo as the Main Tool for Climate Resilience in Central America, Experiences in Guatemala. Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm hearing also my echo. Let me see.
Debe ser algo en tu computador porque nosotros te escuchamos perfectamente.
It must be something on your computer because we can hear you perfectly.
Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Sorry about that. So I wanted to talk to you today about bamboo as the main tool for climate resilience in Central America and the experiences we've had in Guatemala. CASA is a private social company that was started in 2013 with the aim of solving two main problems. As you may know, the construction industry is one of the leading causes of global climate change, with over a third of greenhouse gas emissions, mostly from the production of cement and steel. And construction in general causes a lot of environmental damage. The second big problem is that a very large fraction of very vulnerable people are excluded from affordable and quality housing solutions. Like in Guatemala, where we have a housing deficit of 54%, which results in unnecessary human suffering, stunted human development, and environmental degradation. People that are excluded from proper housing, they chop the forest a lot to get firewood to cook. They degrade some waterways, and in general, they are caught in a vicious cycle of poverty that also creates more environmental damage. So we started CASA to try to help both of these problems with a holistic housing model that tackled four different axes. So in the main, all our houses were designed from the beginning to provide solar energy from solar panels, water from rainwater catchments, sanitation by separating, upcycling, and treating all the wastewater, and to also help combat climate change by using natural building materials. So that was the concept from the very beginning. So when we started CASA, it was nice to get our first clients. You know, we are completely private enterprise and we were a startup. So we were really happy to get our first client, who was a Quiche Mayan in Guatemala, to buy this first house. This is a completely bamboo house, as you've seen probably many in the past. It's a bamboo structure completely that's stuccoed over. The stucco is a mix of cement and lime, and that's put over these bamboo mats. You see completely bamboo structure. So we directly stucco the bamboo mats with the mix of cement and lime. The lime makes it stick really well to the bamboo mats. You can see the solar panel here up top of the roof. There's canals next at the bottom of the roof that redirect the rainwater towards a cistern. And they have a water pump that helps them use the water throughout the year. And the gray water, which is from faucets, showers, all of that goes into a garden. So when you're washing your hands, you're also watering your plants. This was something very simple, very powerful, and that in Guatemala is rarely done. 95% of our rivers are polluted because most of the sewage just goes untreated into rivers. So this was a very simple and impactful thing that we decided to do as a standard in all of our houses, and it's been very appreciated. So this was our first house. We're a company, as I said, so we had to keep looking for clients and getting people to spend their life savings on a house made of bamboo. And we kept advancing a little slowly at first. This was a couple of years later. We built our first two-story house. This is the first. The first story is made completely out of stone. The second story is made completely out of bamboo. This was built in Guatemala City, whereas this one was built in the rural areas. So this was also our first urban house in a very dangerous part of Guatemala City, but it was nice to get a client to believe in bamboo. And inside the ambiance changes a lot. We started seeing from the beginning that, of course, at first, maybe the early adopters, as they're called them, people that already go into a project knowing that they're going to go into a bamboo house. They're more open to how it looks, how its particular pros and cons. It's not a perfectly smooth surface, but we found from the beginning that it was easier than we thought to really convince people about the structural benefits of bamboo, about the longevity of bamboo. Luckily, the internet helped us out a lot. Like when I started building with bamboo, I didn't know anything about bamboo. I researched a lot on the internet. I went and visited farms. I educated myself. And when I became convinced that this was the best material to start casa with, we just went ahead and did it. And every time, every new house, we learned some more. So this next one was a set of two apartments. Also, this was lower middle class. It wasn't completely purely social housing anymore, but it was two apartments to rent. Not that big, 40 square meters on either level. So this is completely two-story bamboo stick frame. And as you see the walls, we use the bamboo mats. This is a very traditional building method, and it's been very successful for us. I'll show you, we've since combined it with other things, but this is single plane, single wall, not structural framing in the sense that we don't have post and beam, which is something different that I'll show you. So this is something that we also learned to do ourselves as a company. There weren't any other companies in Guatemala doing this. And when people asked us, can you build a two-story house made from bamboo? We would say yes, because we needed to keep learning. We needed to keep growing. We needed the company to keep operating. And it was very gratifying to learn hand by hand with our workers. There were some specialized workers in Guatemala before. We continue to nurture them. They're still on our team. They're still valued members of our Casa family, and we keep training more people as the demand arises. So this is 2016. From the very beginning, right when the SDGs came out, we realized that we really needed to track our impact. Impact is the root and the nucleus of what we want to do at Casa. Our purpose is not just to make money. That's our third purpose. We're a company, so we need to make money, but our main purpose is to make a positive impact in the world. And through our houses, we realized we impacted very directly these 4 SDGs. So number 6, which is clean water and sanitation. Number 7, renewable energy. Number 11, sustainable cities and communities. And number 13, climate action. So I'll show you later on because we take very detailed statistics of each house we build. and the impact of each house, which is quite large because a house lasts for a long time. So I just wanted to make it clear that this is something important to us, and I think it's important for anyone working with bamboo. Bamboo can help many SDGs, and right now I'm still just selling short some of the other ones we've impacted. Like as you saw in the previous presentation, there were many that were impacted here in Ecuador through the work with bamboo. So it's important to use this as a framework. 2018, we did our first community project. This was in Punta Brava, Izabal. This is a really remote community in Guatemala on the Caribbean coast. It's a really small community, 50 families. They're at the end of a really long dirt road. They did not have a high school. Their first ever university graduate led an effort to build this high school. And they contacted CASA because they wanted sustainability to be at the root of their education. So they wanted to build a building that represented those values. So we used all local materials. As you see here, the base of the wall here is stone. There's a little river that runs back here about 100 meters. And the inside is all bamboo. It's all bamboo that we harvested from a very nearby plantation. You know, we were lucky that they had some bamboo nearby. And, you know, this is a very iconic space for them. It helped change definitely the mindsets of the village that, like many villages, use bamboo for temporary things like fencing or just dividing agricultural parcels like we saw in the previous presentation. So this definitely helped change mindsets, not just of that village, but of the previous, of neighboring villages that are seeing it. This is a very, now it's not just a high school, but it's a center for learning, adult learning. People gather there to have meetings. And this is just, you know, it helped spark a change in this community. We've sensed, we love Punta Brava. You might have heard about it recently because we hosted the World Bamboo Workshop there. And Punta Brava has always been in our hearts ever since 2018. And I'll tell you more about it in a bit. So after this community project, we continued building more houses. You know, the marketplace, you know, we started getting contacted by different types of customers and different types of climates. So these are more middle-class homes. I will get back to the social aspect and social housing briefly, but I wanted to show you what also as a company, like our reality has been. You know, we started out with social housing, and little by little, clients from middle income and higher income started asking us to build homes for them. So here up top, you see a cylindrical house. Bamboo is very versatile. You can build however you want with it. And, you know, this was in a very hot and very dry climate. Down below, you see a different house, also two-story. Here you see a little bit of the post and beam that I was telling you about, you know, structural framing, where you don't have the wall kind of like a box around, but you have strong columns, strong beams that support all the rest of the house. The rest of, like the white walls are basically just enclosures. So this is built in a completely different microclimate. This is a jungle. It's humid. It's warm, and it's very different. And bamboo is still very apt for both, with the proper design, proper treatment. And this is something that, you know, that we've seen in these years ever since. You know, the middle class asking us for slightly bigger houses. We've also built community halls also for communities that are really remote, like in plantations where the owner asks us to benefit their community. We've done several houses in the city. We've done smaller houses like of 25 square meters, but that have slightly better finishings. We've even done some churches. And in general, we've diversified our product offering a lot, demonstrating that bamboo can really be meet all construction needs. We were even contacted by a commercial center. They wanted to build this. This is the largest bamboo installation in the history of Central America. It was almost 4,000 columns because it's a really large shopping mall, and they wanted to cover all their roofing and all their columns with bamboo. So 4,000 columns captured about 4,000 tons of CO2, and it was just great. We don't really have an interest in doing a lot of commercial projects, but it was great to have one of the largest construction companies value bamboo enough to put it in such a prominent role in such a public construction. So we've seen from all the way to the first social house that we've seen, all the way to commercial projects in a little over 8 years. So we've definitely seen an evolution in the private sector. So, but I want to get back to a project that we've done recently that we really care a lot about. Before that, I just want to show you quickly, we've built 110 projects, and these are the stats, just to give you some of them. We've installed capacity of 14 million gallons of clean water, because all our houses have 5,000 liter cisterns that last for 40 years. So the impact in time is a lot. We've also installed close to 2 million kilowatt hours of clean energy through all the solar panels we've installed, and captured nearly 4,600 tons of CO2. So the impact of a single house is a lot, because a house lasts for a long time. So now going back to this project in 2022, backtracking a little bit, Punta Brava, again, we're in this Caribbean village. In 2020, Punta Brava was flooded by hurricanes Eta and Iota. The whole village was completely submerged with water. Many homes were destroyed, people lost their belongings. And we really thought, how can we help Punta Brava avoid this situation? So we applied to this program called Climate Smart Forest Economy Program, run by Dalberg, World Economic Forum, and other organizations. And they gave us funding for this pilot. What we proposed was that we should grow bamboo in Punta Brava, grow more bamboo, also teach them how to build their own houses. We designed this house that you see here to be very simple cutting, to use with very simple tools, and we built it with them so that when the next hurricane comes, they have material, they have know-how, and they don't need to spend a lot of time waiting for resources or donations. You can see here in the back how they used to build their house. These are traditional houses made of thatch palm, and these little stick woods that are running out. The forest, they're no longer using these sustainably, so they don't longer have material to build their houses how they used to do traditionally. So bamboo is really the only option, something that can grow fast enough, 5 years, that will allow them to rebuild their town if they want to keep living there. Climate change is going to keep making flooding more frequent, stronger, and they basically need to adapt. So we were lucky to get this funding and be able to we built 2 model homes. We reforested 5 hectares. And we also, this is how the house looks like inside. As you can see, it's very simple, but it's very nice. It's very dignified. There's no smoke. There's clean water. It's beautiful. Bamboo is really beautiful. It's really resistant, and it's lifelong lasting. So this is something that's a marked improvement over how they used to live, and something that they could do themselves. So that was our main premise. So we have, if anyone wants to check it out, here's the link. We have all the videos, the blueprints, we have diagrams, we have the budget, we have everything you need to build this house yourself. These educational videos actually were from the construction as we were building it, so that people could assemble it themselves. And the reforestation was done by the students from the Instituto, from the high school, so that was quite beautiful. They learned a lot about bamboo. They're young professionals that pretty soon, before you know it, that's going to be a thriving bamboo forest. And we're going to have already a village with many people that are capable in using bamboo and building with bamboo and doing handicrafts with bamboo. So that was really wonderful. So we realized that, wow, like, you know, two things. Well, we also got sponsored as part of this program a carbon study of our plantations. So Dalberg paid a separate consultant to do a laboratory analysis. We use mostly Dendrocalamus asper. That's the bamboo that we have here, that we use at Casa. So they determined that each hectare of bamboo captures about 120 tons of CO2 equivalent. They also measured that our Casa homes have 80% less embodied carbon than comparable homes built with concrete. And what's interesting here, what's really great about bamboo, for anyone thinking about climate, is that the soil and the root system is what retain the majority of the carbon sink. So the carbon that gets sequestered, it's not just in the culms, you know, that is a big part of the biomass, of course, but most of it is in the soil. So your carbon sink remains there for decades. And if you harvest it sustainably, it keeps capturing carbon. So here is two different, very different pictures. Up top, you see these Dendrocalamus asper plants, which is the plantation that we use. And below you see a pit, a mine for lime and a cement factory. It's two diametrically opposed systems, worldviews. And in this chart, we see that we really need to go way past sustainable. Sustainable is just maintaining the status quo now. We need to go back to restorative and regenerative practices where our impact is really actually net positive, net climate positive, net nature positive, however, whatever term you want to use. And growing bamboo is one of the best things you can do, especially when it's linked to communities and when the communities are the owners, the communities are the caretakers, and the beneficiaries. And, you know, in 2022, Punta Brava, after we had built the houses, it flooded again. And it used to have, these events used to be every 20 years. Now they're happening every 2 years. So we're seeing the effects of climate change already. This is an existential risk for Punta Brava. We were, you know, quite happy in one respect that our houses performed excellently. You know, this is the day after. So you see the mud and the flood went all the way up to here. All the neighbors flooded nearby, and neighbors sought refuge in our houses. So, you know, they performed excellently. It helped again keep changing the minds of the people that bamboo is not just for, well, an iconic schoolhouse. It's also for my own house. You know, it's accessible to me, and we can all do it together. So we've been very happy to see that change. And we continue to try to help Punta Brava and other communities because, as you see here, bamboo is what really allows you to elevate the house. And this is what's going to give Punta Brava the most climate resilience. There's no other species. Nothing else grows fast enough. Nothing else has this long lifespan, physical span, and structural properties. Bamboo really stands on its own as the best climate resilience tool for these communities. So that's why we also hosted the World Bamboo Workshop. We were very grateful that the World Bamboo Organization invited us to host the workshop in Punta Brava. And we taught them how to use, we taught them on a variety of techniques from like furniture and houseware design, of course, construction, edible shoots, and propagation and harvesting. We want to make Punta Brava a center and an example for other communities to follow. And There's many communities like that in Central America. Central America, for those of you that don't know us, we're an isthmus with a narrow strip of land in between Mexico and Colombia, in between two really large land masses, North and South America. And along our coast, we have about 20 to 30 million hectares of land that is very fertile, very apt to grow bamboo. Our governments are very commerce friendly. We have low shipping rates to Europe and the United States, of course, and to South America, business friendly regulatory environment. And most of these are sparsely inhabited, these coastlines, by low income communities. And what's going to happen, these are this is the 2022 tropical storm season paths. So we are getting increasingly hit by tropical storms, and it's going to increase even more. So what bamboo offers these communities is strong adaptation to climate change, shoreline restoration and protection, multiple sources of income, a climate-proof building material, a female-friendly value chain, and land and ecosystem restoration. It's hard to really find, as I was saying, a plant that offers more benefits, not just for the climate resilience, but also all aspects of life because of its strong growth, because of its incredible versatility, and basically, yeah, that's something that all these communities have in common that they could benefit.
5
So
minutes,
at
Tony.
CASA, we're trying to help a lot of these communities kickstart their new agroforestry plantations. By agroforestry, we mean that we've already designed, as part of like the program we did in Punta Brava, we've studied, as has INBAR, we used a lot of the INBAR documentation for what species combine well with bamboo from year 1 to year 2 to year 3, so that you don't have a monoculture plantation. You can have several species intertwined with bamboo. So we're trying to help new plantations start up in communities by helping them certify and register new plantations from a satellite, so that you can take pictures and demonstrate that you're capturing carbon. We're gonna follow all the principles from the core carbon principles from regulatory bodies to make sure that all of this is as transparent as possible, and help them get sponsorship and capital from companies that need to offset their emissions, so that these companies pay these communities to restore land, which I think is one of the biggest opportunities in the coming 10 years. We need to restore degraded land. That degraded land is oftentimes in community land, and these communities need to benefit from that process. So we're helping them start those pilots. And we believe, kind of by starting to close off, that, in massifying community plantations along, well, not just Central America, the global South, we're really going to be feeding into the 21st century's building construction, the construction industry. The future of construction is in biofibers. I'm sure of that. And bamboo is the king of biofibers. This is a building in Norway that's built completely out of wood. And this is pressed wood that's glued and laminated in a factory, and it's engineered. You take fibers from a mass and then you press them together. And bamboo is the fastest growing structural fiber on earth. We're just starting to discover it. This is still something new in Europe and in the US. It's less than 20 years old. I mean, it's younger than Facebook. And it started with pine and Douglas fir, which are two tree species. And it's only starting to be thought about with bamboo in terms of massive structures like this. So what's going to happen when we actually start to do this on a large scale? We're going to need tens of millions of hectares of bamboo all over the global South. We need to start growing that quickly, now, everywhere, as much as we can. in South America, Central America, Africa, India, Southeast Asia. And I think it's going to be a wonderful thing to experience and be a part of. And we need to, of course, participate actively as much as we can from now. And this is another picture of something that is already happening with bamboo. This is a picture from Bamcor. They're in the United States. As some of you may know,
Antonio. 1 minute.
5 minutes? Okay. Thank you.
One.
Yeah, so this is a picture from Bamcor in the United States. Some of you may know, the United States builds most of their houses with wood. So that's already a wood-based marketplace. There's no issue of cultural adaptation. These wooden houses then get covered with another material, siding it's called, and they get covered on the inside, they get painted. So people don't even bother to think about what their houses are made of anymore. They're all made of different sorts of fibers. And Bamcor is already using the bamboo fiber to make these really thermal efficient and more structural panels. So once this takes off in the United States, which is the largest housing market in the world, takes off, they're going to need to buy a lot of bamboo, and they're going to be buying it hopefully from communities in the global south, from climate vulnerable communities. So they're going to be benefiting from bamboo, not just as a building material for themselves to rebuild their own villages, but as an actual source of income that can help them escape poverty. So I'm going to close with that. That's why I wanted to reiterate that I firmly believe that bamboo is the main tool to help combat climate resilience in Central America. And thank you so much for listening. And let's grow that future together. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Toño, por
Thank you very
esta
much, Antonio,
presentación.
for this
Y
presentation.
quisiera hacer.
I would like to ask you a very quick question before we move on with the next speaker. And my question is, how do you see the regulatory issue in Guatemala to foster or stimulate bamboo housing in a larger fashion and to help other companies to grow too? Is there any possibility for the government to implement construction codes or construction standards with bamboo and also foster bamboo construction policies? Can these be done in the short term? Well, thanks. That's a wonderful question. I see these as something possible in the short term. I think that maybe in 2 or 3 years, well, the upcoming government is pro-environment. So in the last year, the National Agriculture Chain of Bamboo has been created, and it brings together all producers, crafters, and builders. So there's already a national effort that tries to include different associations and different guilds. So I think that this is a first step. I think that this chain is an entity that has the possibility of interacting with the Minister of Agriculture and the rest of the government. So I think that this is a promising step. And as I mentioned before, our government is very environmentalist, and they will start in office in January 14th. So these are some good omens that, as mentioned before by Fabian, we haven't had a clear situation as the earthquake. And I think that in Guatemala, processes do take time. And during the next years, I hope that we can plant a seed. And as Fabian pointed out, this is something that we can try to do in maybe 4 or 8 years. Let's hope that we can make this happen as soon as possible. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tonio, for your presentation, for the answer to my question. And of course, we are looking forward to the questions of the audience at the end of the session. Now, we would like to give the floor to our third speaker of the day, It's nice here in the Philippines, actually. So with us, we have architect Rafael Rojas Garcia,
del Valle en
who
Cali.
studied in Universidad del Valle in Cali in 1991. Rafael has pioneered bamboo construction in Colombia and Latin America. He started doing so over 30 years ago, and he created projects in both Colombia and Ecuador. And after this, he also worked in projects in Brazil, and he has also been our advisor in the Philippines. So he's founded an institution for construction. He's been the teacher for many of us. I am one of his former students. We've learned from Rafael. So it's a real honor to introduce my friend Rafael, and also my friend in many bamboo adventures during my time in Colombia. So currently, Rafael is working as a professor in SENA, which is the National Technical Learning Center of Colombia. And he also is an architect at the moment. So, Rafael, I would like to welcome you. You have 30 minutes for your presentation. All right. Thank you so much for your introduction. It's a real honor being here today. It's an honor to be able to share this with you. But it's also a challenge to be able to address you after these two wonderful presentations by Fabian and Antonio. It's very difficult to keep up the level. The presentations that we just heard were fantastic, and there's a lot of enthusiasm about this. So I think it is important for us to continue learning. We need to keep on trying to create a change with this kind of materials such as bamboo. All right, so I'd like to tell you a story about an exercise carried out in Colombia in 2000. So now I'd like to share my screen, and please let me know if you can see it, okay? Please let me know if you can see it. Yes, yes, we see it, we see it, we see it perfectly. Could you please share a full screen? Fantastic. All right. This project was the beginning. Well, not this specific project. So the events that took place in 1999, there was a major national tragedy because there was an earthquake that took place in the coffee axis of Colombia. And this led to a lot of casualties. Many lives were lost, unfortunately. There was a lot of destruction. Nevertheless, after this, we started with a rebuilding process. So we have these opportunities. So we worked with Guado Angustifolia. So these buildings were made of this material. So there were the responses to the seismic event, and a lot of people, as mentioned before by Fabian and also by Toño, so we started realizing what were the benefits of bamboo, because there was a material that was coming from this region that could lead to a very interesting solution. And because of this, so we started taking a look, we started putting our interest in this material. So at that moment, I was just coming back from Ecuador after 4 years. 4 years where I had the opportunity of sharing with many of my friends in that country. There were a lot of workshops, there was a lot of learning, there was a lot of discovery too, because this has always been a constant route for learning. And we had the opportunity of putting forth some proposals that could lead to the development of some houses in the coffee belt, of course, after the earthquake as a result of it. At that moment, I started working with the Bamboo Society, and I created a proposal which at that moment gathered everything that I had learned in Ecuador previously, and also all the work that had been done in Colombia, of course, surrounding the technical aspect and the assertive response given to this. And it wasn't as passionate because often we are too passionate about this material and want to solve everything with the use of bamboo. So we wanted to create a proposal as a prototype that could be a sample of how to build. At that moment, we wanted to perform proper construction with bamboo as well as with other materials that could go together with bamboo structures, specifically water constructions. So the prototype promoted just like many others. I don't know how many there were. 23 years have gone by. So there were 3 prototypes. 2 houses were built with this prototype. So they were promoted by the Colombian Bamboo Society that wanted to promote these prototypes, that wanted to find financing. And this was done through a family house. These are entities in Colombia. This is called Compensar. And the sign was made by me. So 2 families were chosen. And what was particular about this family is that they were female-led. So these are women heads of households that were affected by the 1999 earthquake. So we offered the prototypes that at that moment were considered basically the windows for this opportunity. So they were meant for reconstruction. And the coffee belt in particular, specifically in Quindío and Armenia and neighboring areas, had different strategies to start offering people, offering families some prototypes or some housing solutions that could be chosen, and the government would finance in their majority with a subsidy for reconstruction. So we participated in this real estate project because people had this feeling that Wadwa was a material used in reconstruction, and this was also used for the social fabric because this worked as an element for the creation of new projects of construction and also for the creation of some specific areas related to manufacturing. So there were different fields where water was used. And there were some companies that were created because of the great motion. So Quindío is a small department, we know. And of course, it's located in Colombia. So based on this, we started mentioning that Wadua and all constructions made with Wadua in the country in Quindío that was the place where the best material was found, where the best builders were found, of course, throughout Colombia. And this was part of this construction stage. So this was some of the background provided for this. So during this real estate first, we didn't have a lot of support because people continued believing that the development of social housing is always considered as a different kind of house, of course. So the materials that were considered didn't include bamboo. Nevertheless, we did this with the Colombian Society of Bamboo. There was a lot of promotion made about the opportunity of participating with some workshops where people were taught with their own examples about how this material had proper responses. So we did some knowledge transfer about the way in which bamboo could be used for construction, and also how the situations were used and how they can improve. So we've always wanted to improve our technique in the use of this material. We wanted to evolve it, we wanted to change it, and we wanted to explore this field. But in order to explore new developments, we wanted to change the perspective in which bamboo was used and change its development. So we tried to link this in parallel, as I mentioned, to some startups, and we tried to involve some industrial aspects which could enable a greater understanding about the durability and the response of this material. So understanding that indeed this could be used and that standards could be applied. So at this moment, we created a new standard because of the earthquake. So we started implementing an earthquake resistant standard, and we use an NSR 98 standard at the moment. So both prototypes that were built that I would like to show you at this moment took place in the Montenegro municipality, located about 10 kilometers away from the capital of this department of Quindío. The capital is Armenia. So the topography of this area is quite particular. As you can see in this map, you can see this small worm-like elements that can be seen in the urban fabric of the city of Armenia. These are some streams that are involved in the development of it. So this was done over this area. And this is where you can see a different development, where you can see how the Spaniards developed their activities and also how this adapted to the topography. And we can see these elements used here that are part of the landscape. Because as I mentioned, these are streams. So this area is currently being used by bamboo. This is being used by Wadwan bamboo of other species. So we can see this wider area, and the elements we can see in this part, of course, as you can see here, they are found in this particular zone, and the urban development has taken place by following some landscaping elements. So these are the streams. So this means that this sector or that this region includes a lot of Wadwan gustifolia. So it was difficult to find labor and material. So there was no process in this case where a proper knowledge transfer could take place from a technical point of view, as in the past there had been some workshops where the good practices were mentioned regarding this material, and also there was labor from the region and from the municipality of Montenegro. So in this case, the Wadwa had the same effect. Now, this development, we wanted to do so since the beginning because we realized that there was a hurry there was a need and urge for the creation of solutions that were material focused, but they were not focused on different aspects that would broaden this aspect that were related to the importance of the material and that would provide real answers to this versus the technical requirements that were needed for these houses. So, as we were saying before, our interest was not to solve everything with Wadwa. There were a lot of examples at the moment about this because we were attempting to put forth some economic proposals. And as this material is present throughout and it can be found in many places, and basically it was given out and everyone would be building fences and warehouses and other things out of Wadwa. Of course, they use this for livestock and agriculture. So this became quite economical, but in retrospect, considering the durability of construction, considering that it may have a proper behavior in time, we tried to identify what were the spaces and the areas of the buildings that were needed for development of Wadwa. So we divided this into two blocks. Some blocks of instances where there was a higher permanence of housing, and this also led to certain aspects related to these houses and also comfortable, because we realized that people needed to find a material for housing that could provide them some proper acceptance versus the material because of the history it has had. This is part of their own culture, as we all know. So we deemed it appropriate to provide a response to these instances that were related to the social area, which was the first story, and also the bathroom, and try to solve this with traditional materials of the region. In this case, we decided to use clay bricks. This is called common brick, ladrillo común, in Colombia. And for this, we applied the earthquake-proof construction standard. So we wanted to prove that this was compatible, and we wanted to create some empathy towards this material. And somehow be a sample for the creation of best practices, as many of these things can be properly solved with these materials. So this instances were done with normal bricks, as we mentioned before. So they use this kind of brick, and this uses concrete elements too. So it is held by vertical cement as pillars or columns, and also horizontal elements that are beams and structures. So we decided to use this because these are the areas that are more affected by the wear and tear of use and also the intervention of some elements as water, power, and others. So these are spaces that also imply certain danger because of fires, because housing made of bareque and wadra happen because of spaces such as kitchens, because a lot of people are still using firewood in a very rudimentary fashion and not using the appropriate techniques for this. And also, when using toilets, there are situations that make it more difficult because of humidity, because humidity is not only present starting from pipes, but there are also many areas that are found on the walls and other elements that create the spaces. And in many of these houses, there's no appropriate lining of other materials that can be fireproof or waterproof. Thus, usually, what we see from a perspective of the construction with bamboo is that toilets and kitchens would often be a mess in a very short period of time. Likewise, we decided to propose a two-story building because the size of the parcel is very small, 72 square meter. So this was the size that was given to people to rebuild. So this was the size, 6 meters by 12 meters. So we wanted to create an impact with a lower footprint. So we wanted this to be lower than 50%. Montenegro is a town of almost 45,000 people. And in the urban area, there are 37,000 people, I think. So this is an area that still uses urban farms and also create other activities that are part of the households, that are part of the family of living. So we didn't want to use the majority of the space, and we wanted this to be 60 meters, 60 square meters in its contraction. And usually they would offer 45 square meters, but we decided at that moment to offer a larger size because it's not appropriate to confine families to such small spaces. We all know how this affects the behaviors of families when houses are so small. So with the same amount of resources subsidized by the government, they were given this compensation, wanted to offer 70 square meters. However, this strategy didn't go through either. But at the end of the day, we were able to find these two families through the Colombian Society of Bamboo and develop this house. So this house is built 2 stories. So we have the social spaces on the first floor and the bedrooms on the second floor. And we can see the development of what the structure made out of water is going to be like. And this is used as an arm for circulation, that the corridor is the area that brings these two structures together. And we can see how this is made with bricks and also with water. In addition, we consider different aspects related to cross-venting. So this was a very simple design. And at some point, we wanted to react to how this is built and try to forget about certain aspects that, as I mentioned, were considering the past, but would only be solved with water. That was the technical part. We wanted to see how this material interact with the environment and how it worked together with other materials and would respond to the conditions of the people who would live in this house. What the furniture in this moment consisted of a distribution where the central third proposed would have to be open elements. They could be windows, they could be doors, and this is how this was created. It in such a way where the corners were configured vertically and horizontally in a triangular way. So there was a vertical part of the wall and also the horizontal part of the wall. So there were some diagonal elements that created some prisms, and this would contribute the stiffness of the modules. So we wanted this, you have 5 more minutes, that could be reflected in such a way, and that could also be successfully replicated. So we wanted to go away from the artisanal way of building because we believed that this was not enough for this construction, but we wanted to have a different perspective where we could replicate this, or we could make it in such a way where this could be more important and we could create different kind of responses. This is a 3D picture of the structure. So we wanted to create this kind of houses line, but also respond to these walls by creating these areas that are fireproof. And these are the wet areas and the kitchens, but also the living areas with bamboo. And also these diagonal elements creating the corners and providing more rigidity to this. This, of course, lined with mortar, with cement, with sand, and with water. It is worth mentioning that we also not wanted to apply bareque at that moment directly, which was being accepted from a regulation perspective. But in addition, we wanted this structure by itself. We wanted the water structure to provide enough to have a proper behavior. So this lining could have different characteristics and different materials. Even though we couldn't couple them together, we were able to see this result in some of them, and this included certain construction elements where we can see the use of brick, and we can see this water structure. This is a water structure that was anchored through this with a light lining made with steel. We call this thermoacoustic lining here. And labor, in this case, was not very industrialized. So there were some processes in which we tried to create a sequence and be coherent between the construction and being able to replicate this with solutions that would be created based on a standard or that would have a homogeneous response from a technical perspective, of course. And finally, This is how they look, and this is how they are still in time. They were fully finished. Actually, they were given out, and the resource delivered in this case was not given in full. So these houses were around $7,500. That was about 15 million pesos at that moment. So one of the houses in particular was not fully finished. This is one of the bedrooms, and this is part of the structure. So the houses lasted for too many years before having the need of an intervention by the owners. And this, of course, answers the economic situation they were facing at the moment and the way in which they were recovered. So there are certainly opportunities for improvement, and there's also interest by societies of demonstrating these houses. So there's also been support for them to look better. That these are some pictures that were taken during this year. Here we can clearly see how they look and the current status of the water in these houses. This balcony was built by the family. We didn't think about this before, but they wanted to add one. So this balcony was built. This was included in the response. And as we said, this is the material that we use. This is the evolution of the inside of the house. And there are some diagonal beams. You have 1 minute. So this is how they look. And this is constantly used in this area. We use this kind of decor. So this is how they looked at the beginning, and this is how they evolved. And what are the modifications and how they've contributed with this kind of roofs that are used in the coffee belt. They have different colors, and we can see that water is the protagonist. So this is a very simple solution, and we wanted to highlight the use of the design where we are not so passionate about bamboo, but more focused on the possibility of considering bamboo as a material that can work together with other materials and can do so in a proper way, and that can also be part of this tradition, because people often want their houses built out of cement or bricks. But in this case, we can bring them together. We can create a fantastic pair in different stances, and we can appropriately solve them with the use of bamboo structures and others that are also preserved and kept with other materials that you consider appropriate for construction on this day and age. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Rafa. And I would like to ask you a question. Can you tell us about the evolution of social housing in Colombia in the last few years? In the near future, do you see projects with Bareque that are done at a greater scale? Because what we've seen beyond the reconstruction of the coffee belt, some houses are properly done, some are not so well done, of course. But after this, they've just been just random houses. They haven't happened at a greater scale. They haven't been massively built. So do you see that there's any room for improvement in this area? Well, I believe that this has lost some protagonism. in regards of initiatives because they've worn out during these 20 years. 20 years after the experience with the coffee belt. So there's been kind of a loss because there have been some very poor experiences. And often bad experiences are the ones that have greater visibility in the media. Just like there were some very good examples and some good prototypes, there were entire neighborhoods built with wadwa that today, as of 2023, don't exist anymore. And what's left is in very, very poor conditions. So during those 20 years, this has changed, and entire neighborhoods have been torn down because they weren't useful and they have been replaced by traditional houses made of brick and cement. So they certainly do not improve the quality of housing in the spatial perspective. But the perspective of what perdures is what's important. No one wants a house that constantly needs improvement and maintenance. No one wants a house that shows wear and tear because of day-to-day action. No one wants a house affected by humidity or by other effects. So these poor practices or these basic conditions related to the protection by design against these external agents, either physical or chemical, were not considered. So this has led to some of this building to deteriorate and serve as a very poor example. Today, there are some initiatives, but they're very, very specific. And they happen in the center of the country. Nevertheless, I think there is still an impact, and this was very deleterious against some entities, both private and government owned. And this led to a loss in credibility of material. So this will entail new strategies where bamboo have to be promoted again. And considering this as a lesson learned and considering that it can show, as Camilo said, and so the Doña Fabián, we showcase the good examples and we can make sure that this is not an issue and that we can tell the good stories that just recently there was temporary housing made for some activities and fell down. This is called Corralejas. Yeah, of course, and this is a bullfighting ring. And, well, people were saying that this was not good because it was made out of water. Yes, water was to blame according to them. Well, so there's still a lot to learn of traditional construction. I think that something that happened during the construction of the coffee belt is that we forgot about the learning of traditional bareque, and these traditional houses did have protection by design. That's why many of them still stand in the coffee belt and have been there for 100 years. So we need to learn from this. All right. So now let's start with the Q&A. I would like to invite the two other speakers to join me. We're going to have a chat. There are some questions that have been sent to the chat box, to my inbox, and some of them are also posted on the calls chat. So the first question is for Fabian. It's in English. I'm going to try to translate it. Great work in Ecuador. There are some young engineers that can promote bamboo for the construction and consumers in the country? Can this be done? Fabian, is there an association of young engineers or young people working on bamboo at the moment? Well, the group of young builders, the greatest amount are the ones from the workshop school for civil construction. But in addition, they are the only ones that are certified by the Ministry of Labor. I forgot to mention that last year, Ecuador was able to include in the catalog of trades in Ecuador bamboo construction. So they can already be certified in Ecuador, those builders, those builders that use bamboo. Fantastic. This one is for Antonio. How competitive is the system in Guatemala in contrast to conventional housing made out of concrete? I don't know what are the ones you have in place from a conventional point of view in Guatemala. Thank you for your question. The traditional system in Guatemala is concrete, blocks, and confinement possibilities. So there's very little use of brick, but it's usually pre-manufactured blocks. Our houses are competitive in prices, but our houses have some added values because they have solar panels, they capture rainwater, they have their own drain system. So if we compare this dollar to dollar, they have the same cost, but they have a greater value. So we compete directly in the market without subsidies. And we've seen that people who look for us, it's taken a while, of course. It took a little bit to adapt the conception of understanding cheap houses, understand that we were cheaper than the competition. But now people search for us because of the quality, the value, and also because of the principles. They want our houses because they want to align their life values with their greatest investment, which is certainly house. All right, fantastic. Now this one is for Rafael. During this last years that you've worked with bamboo in Colombia, and especially through all the training provided, what do you see as the potential or the chain for the creation and training of new professionals? Because there could certainly be a bottleneck for engineers and architects. Have you seen changes in the last 20 years on this? Well, yeah, there's been a lot of interest. But yeah, during the first decade of 2000 to 2010, there's been a lot of interest. And this interest has continued peaking. At the moment, we are basically stuck. There are some people, yes, there are some people but part of the development, part of the practices include and Universidad del Valle has been able to keep professors that do a lot of work about this. And there's a still some offer for international workshops. And it's had some good situations. And there are also some thesis projects. And in the past, of course, there were more. This is because, as we stand, the perspective has transformed because there have been some activities from an academic perspective that happened internationally about this. And this was done in different universities. So in spite of this, there was a breath of fresh air. This happens usually with visas because this was a new issue that could be explored. And this has been thoroughly explored. And I think that this has been kept. The institution that I work at currently, which is the National Learning Service, we have the offer for technical training from a specialist point of view. We provide a course on the assembly of water structures. And recently, there has been a change in the curriculum that included the use of maintenance of heritage constructions, because there are some cities in the coffee belt that have some buildings that are heritage. So this includes the participation of this. And there's also a need of improving many of these constructions. And this is part of the curriculum, as I mentioned before, where the improvement of these structures is considered. And also the change of this structure that didn't work properly. We are now in a place where the momentum was lost, and this can already be seen in the standard. It's no longer only Bareque, but there are other possibilities. There are other kinds of buildings that involve architecture, and they have different characteristics to the ones that we had in the past. It's not only for housing. So there are many initiatives, and there are some very good examples of places for tolls, churches, bridges. So because of this, there's been a lot of interest. And we've seen that there's interest. There's interest because the material can be seen as a good construction material. However, as I said before, it's been lost. All right. Okay. So to wrap up and to give the floor to Edwin for his final remarks, I just wanted to finish with the last comment, which is that I consider that it's very interesting to see from a public initiative how all these strategies have been created, starting with the construction standard, but also with the housing policy from a private initiative in Guatemala, where companies and entrepreneurs have been able to develop sustainable housing projects for every single aspect, not environmental, but also economically. And all this story that Rafael has created in Colombia with the reconstruction and disaster recovery, but also the development of research that has taken place in Colombia the last 20 years, which certainly is the country that has had the most development from a perspective of research and construction the last few years. And what we can see here is a lot of people working in Latin America in parallel, but without any kind of coordination. So we are all speaking the same language, and we should all be pushing to the same side. So this is an invitation to all of you focus on bamboo construction in Latin America to find mechanisms by which we can collaborate with each other. We can do so with our own governments, help other governments with the creation of these policies, and also from the academia, for example, in Colombia, with research, promote the use of this knowledge and include them in the construction standards and the best practices. Thank you very much to all three of you. It's been an honor sharing this space with you. I would like to give the floor to Doray and Edwin for their closing remarks. Thank you very, very much.
Edwin, I think you can go first, or do you want me to go first?
Please go ahead, Ture.
Thank you very much, Edwin. Thank you very much. Who is Felipe? So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for the friends from different parts of the world. So housing is a very basic human need, and it is also one of the major contributors for climate change. and the current conventional construction materials such as like some cement, steel, aluminum, and all those material poses challenges when it comes to the climate change as well as the green economic development. So at the same time, bamboo, wood, and other construction material provides an alternative, which is being demonstrated by different panelists of all the 4 sessions. So the progress, like what we have achieved in the past 2 decades in the construction sector when it comes to bamboo is quite commendable. We have seen the progress both from Africa, Latin America, and Asia as a whole. And some countries and some continents have progressed like some far better than others, but there has been considerable progress in all across the world, both of using the bamboo as a whole pole construction material and also as an engineered like a material. I want to say that though there has been considerable development in the past decades, it is only an iota of the potential of the bamboo. So the bamboo holds huge potential. There is scope for scaling up like within the communities and the countries where we are working, and also at the same time scaling out to the countries and like some communities where the bamboo has not like reached. Is like some seminar species, this like some seminar series, awareness raising, capacity building, technology transfer are the objectives. That is the prime objectives why we had this like some seminar species in the current year as well as in the past years that is directly relevant to bamboo. And we believe that the intended objectives are achieved by this like some seminar species, and we have like consistently seen like a very big set of like people attending the construction seminar. Today's seminar in particular, the speakers like Fabian, Antonio, and like Rafael have provided a very classic cases and examples from Latin America, where the construction sector is quite advanced and there is a huge scope for development as well. So the usage of the bamboo in the social housing is quite important, like because the scale it can penetrate, the benefit it can bring to the people is quite large. Like some compared to like focusing on a very high end like some market segment, which is already like focused on green, like some construction material, but promoting bamboo in the social housing sphere is a very big challenge, and at the same time a very big opportunity for us to tap into. This not only benefit to bring the green economy, but also it contribute to benefiting the climate change resilience, climate change like mitigation, disaster prevention, and also contributing to the overall sustainable development goals. So a seminar was organized by the INBAR Construction Task Force and has been held in the past 4 years since the COVID times. This year's focus is on Latin America, on the architecture, engineering, education, innovation, and on the social bamboo housing. The management team of the task force on construction, comprising of Kuai, the coordinator of the task force on construction, and Mr. Edwin, the chair of the INBAR task force on construction, are like responsible for the seminar. They selected the topic and assigned the agenda, for which the 12 speakers from 8 countries, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Panama, Peru, Switzerland, Mexico, and like some Guatemala, were like some participated in the 4 like some sessions, of which 7 experts are outside the task force on construction, and 4 from the task force on construction, 1 from the INBAR staff like member. The 4 task force like the members were also like moderating the whole session with the INBAR staff, and today's session was ably moderated by Luis Felipe. I congratulate him for his excellent moderation. Thanks to all the efforts of the speakers and like moderators from the task force and from outside the task force. So overall, around 1,300 participants like registered for the seminar, and 500 IU participants for the 4 sessions, and like some 1,500 views from the YouTube. So it shows the seminar were quite popular. And I want to especially thanks the logistics and IT team support, Yu Xingwai of our INBAR Secretariat, Ho Chen, the IT specialist, and Li Huai, our intern, who support in coordination and other things. Special thanks to INBAR Latin American office under the leadership of Pablo Jacome for their promotion and for inviting the speakers. And our thanks also goes to Mr. Thomas Rossi for his excellent interpretation between Spanish and English, which is a hard task, and I want to applaud him for his contribution. And at the end, like before I conclude, I want to provide a small advertisement. So in the year 2024, we will be also having some similar seminar that will be focusing on Africa. So we welcome the experts who are interested in showcasing their work on the bamboo construction to contact Kuwai and us to become the part of speaker in the upcoming year. So the seminar is getting concluded alongside with COP28, which is also concluding today in Dubai. So I want to say that the bamboo construction have enormous potential for contributing to climate change because of its fast growing, annual harvesting, climate resilience, both as a crop and also as a construction material, which is disaster proof as well. I want to thank you all for your contribution. I want to thank all the participants as well for your consistent support. So thank you very much. With this, I want to give the floor to Edwin to finally conclude the workshop.
Thank you. Thank you, Durai. I just now can echo first the thanks to all the organization team, to Thomas for the translation, and to all the participants and the exponents during this online seminar. One message, and I was very pleased to hear from Tono, bamboo is regenerative, and bamboo is the only material where we can benefit the most and not the few. We have to be very close to our communities. We need to make bamboo and the communities resilient, and there is no other material that can allow us to do that. So that is very important. As Durai mentioned, this time we stayed in Latin America, where many of the initiatives around the world, I can say, started, but the trip will continue around this time this year, next year. We will have another online seminar with the same format. And we will try to bring the initiatives and all the interesting research that is happening in the African continent. So already now we're starting to contact people and to look for interesting projects happening there. There's a huge amount of land that we need to cover, and I'm sure there's a huge amount of initiatives that where we can learn. And with that, I again thank you all for your participation and for your attention, and I hope to see you next year again. Muchas gracias a todos y les deseo de una vez lo mejor.
Thank you very much, everybody, and I wish you the best.
And with that, we give close to our online seminar. Goodbye, everyone.
Hasta luego. Ciao, Durai. See you later.
Fabian, have a great day. Have a great day.
Muchas gracias por la invitación.
Thank you very much, Rafael, for your great presentation. Thank you, Antonio, for your great presentation as well. Who is Felipe? Thank you.
Okay.
This is on my
you,
behalf. Thank you,
Durai.
everybody.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Hope to see you again next time.
And thank you, Kwei, for the
Thank you.
invitation.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hi,
Bye.
Kuai. Great.
Hi.
Gracias a todos, gracias.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
everyone.
Learned quite a lot.
Ali, you are here.
Yes, I've been following. I only missed 1 week.
Yes.
It's always an encouragement.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Wei. We look forward to seeing the Africa stories next year.
Yeah, I think please
Yes, we can
promote
have
it there.
See you next year.
Yes.
See you next year.
Okay, bye-bye.
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 Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.